Hello, everybody. How are you on this amazing Tuesday afternoon? I know this is an impromptu live. I had been planning to go live today, but I didn't know what time it was going to be, so I didn't try to plan it ahead. For you guys who have been in the group for some time, you know that I used to go live once a week in the group, and that's something that I really would like to bring back. I was starting out with a Manifestation 101 series, which you can still find if you search hashtag Manifestation 101. All the video series are in the group. But now I want to do an Align with the Truth Tuesday series. Because as I go through my journey and I help my clients go through their journeys, I'm realizing more and more and more that it is much less about manifesting as it is about calibrating to and aligning to the ideal self you have in mind, the version of yourself you want to create, the things you're calling in. It's not about manifesting, it's about aligning to it. Okay. So I want to bring that forward to you guys. And today, what I actually wanted to do, because we're talking about aligning to the truth, I want to share some truths of my own life. I had a huge epiphany the other day, and I'm going to try to explain it to you in as streamlined a fashion as possible, but you know I like to talk, so let's see what happens. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory. So I saw several weeks ago now, I saw a Instagram post that talked about how children who grow up in households where there is emotional turmoil, maybe some fear, emotional outbursts and things like that, go on to be adults who create chaos in their own lives to fulfill that need to be stressed out. Like children who grow up in a household where there is emotional turmoil become physiologically addicted to the stress hormone, the cortisol, rushing through their veins. Okay. So as adults, because now that's become part of our blueprint, right? You've heard me talk about blueprints before. Now that that's part of our blueprint, I'm talking about myself here, obviously. Now that that's part of our blueprint, we are recreating that pattern in our lives by creating chaos. So that looks like taking on too many things, saying yes to things that don't really light us up, refusing to ask for help. Okay. And those things are all things that I quote unquote suffer from. I don't really consider it suffering, but anyway, they are challenges that I have. And that's because when I was a kid, my dad, who is a very great dad, I don't mean to paint him in any kind of other light than that, but my dad had quite a temper. And the worst thing that ever really happened is he punched a wall or something, right? Like it wasn't that big of a deal, but he did have emotional outbursts, and he did create fear in the household in the sense that, oh, dad's upset, dad's pissed off, we better go hang out in our room and be quiet and don't, say anything to aggravate it, don't upset him, don't whatever. So that has been projected into my adulthood as taking on too many things, creating chaos in my life, not asking for help. The not asking for help, though, also stems from something from my childhood where essentially I've come to the realization that I, again, quote unquote, suffer from emotional abandonment trauma as a child. Okay. And again, my parents are amazing parents. I don't mean to paint them in any kind of light, but my sister needed a lot more love and attention than I did. I was quite independent. I had kind of my ducks in a row. I was making goal lists at, 11, 12 years old. So I was already independent by nature. But what has happened because of this emotional abandonment that I have come to realize that I, again, quote unquote, suffer from, one of the projections of that is like relentless independence and a refusal to ask for help and kind of bottling emotions and all the things that I'm actively working through. And a lot of it I have already worked through, but I wanted to share with you guys because a lot of this surfaced yesterday. My husband and I are planning what is essentially an impromptu camping trip. We went camping a few weeks ago and we were going to be gone for quite a long time, but unfortunately all of the wildfire smoke and whatnot caused us to have to pump the brakes on that and come home early. So we took advantage of that and did a little bit of motorhome remodeling, redid the floor and redid the bedroom. And then we parked it and then decided, okay, you know what, let's go out camping again. So we were talking about this yesterday. We were thinking about leaving today. And then I got all anxious and stressed out because I don't like to do things impromptu. Okay. And this is kind of my realization that I wanted to share with you is my husband is very spontaneous. He's very right now. Let's get it done. Like, why wait? Why talk about it? Why mull it over? If it's something we want to do, let's just do it. And that relates to everything we do. Like if I say, it'd be nice if I had a shelf here. Next thing I know, I've got a shelf there, right? Like it's very helpful. But in terms of planning and trips and whatnot, he's very spontaneous and wants to go right away. Whereas I have come to realize that I am very much put it on the back burner, put it away for another day. Very procrastinating. Okay. So anyway, I realized yesterday we got into a whole big thing. I was all stressed out, making a list of all these things I had to do and thinking about all the things that I hadn't thought of yet that needed to get done. And I then said to him, okay, we need to postpone this trip one day. We can still go, but let's go on Wednesday instead of Tuesday because I have too many things to do and there's no way I can get it all done tonight. And so that was fine. And it all ended fine. But the argument that started was because I was letting my anxiety get the best of me and my ego was being rubbed the wrong way, right? And my tendency to procrastinate and put things off was rubbing me the wrong way. And then I had this epiphany that, and this goes back to my human design as well. If you guys have not had a human design reading, I highly recommend. And if you need a recommendation, please let me know because I have an amazing friend who does incredible human design readings. But so I'm a manifestor, and part of my human design is to create in bursts. I am not somebody who can, and I have evidence of this in my own life. I'm not somebody who can consistently chip away at something with the same level of creativity. I have bursts of creativity, and then I also have that usually is followed by not a letdown of creativity, but just kind of a period of quiet kind of contemplation, letting things integrate. And for me, that looks like what I'll usually do is I'll have a breakthrough and I'll create something amazing from that. And then once all of the juices and all of the information and all of the breakthrough components have been expelled, then I kind of go into what almost is like a hibernation mode where not much happens until I have this next burst, which again is usually followed by some breakthrough that I've had. So all of this came into one big aha moment yesterday when I realized if I was to better utilize my human design and use my burst of creativity to batch content creation and schedule things out and basically be a little more organized, it would therefore create less chaos in my life because I realized what I was actually stressed out about was my lack of preparation, right? Like it was my lack of organization that led me to be rubbed the wrong way. Because if I had already planned ahead, I mean, you guys know that I have Consistency Kickstart is open for registration right now. So I still had things to do that were involved in that, like scheduling out emails and posts and having the content ready to be disseminated on Sunday when we start and, what have you. And I realized that anger, that frustration, that anxiety was actually an invitation for me to expand and to have this realization that if I was to utilize my human design in a more productive way, I wouldn't have created this chaos in my life right now. And then I realized, that one of my MOs to creating this chaos in my life is this lack of organization and this lack of pre-planning, right? And it is a kind of a fine line between trying to work in an aligned state and trying to plan ahead, right? But that's why I'm saying dialing it all the way back to my human design. If I was to utilize that and utilize my inherent, what's the word I'm looking for? If I was to utilize my inherent, personality traits, basically, right? My energy type, and utilize those creative bursts to not only create content, but also to schedule it out and do it in a more organized fashion, I would be less likely to create chaos in other areas of my life. So one of the things I've been doing since I discovered that I do create chaos in my life as a way to fulfill this stress hormone, which, okay, yes, it is a physiological desire to have that cortisol running through my veins, but does it feel good? No, right? Usually when anybody is stressed out, not only is it not good to us, but we end up taking it out on the people that we love too. Right. So more often than not, my husband, my son, whoever, they end up getting the brunt of my anxiety when it really has nothing to do with them. And they are just unfortunately innocent bystanders to this outburst of chaos. Right. So what I have started doing for the past few weeks, since I realized that I do create chaos in my life unintentionally to fulfill this need to be stressed out, I've started asking myself, even as simple as laundry piles and scheduling things out. And I mean, not necessarily with this particular example, because it's an evolving breakthrough, obviously here, right? But the other thing that I realized is I need to do is ask myself in any given moment, what is the result here that's going to give me the least amount of chaos? What is going to create the least amount of chaos here? Is leaving this pile of laundry to do later or to put away later, it's already folded and everything, laundry piles, is leaving this pile of folded clothes here, instead of putting it away now, is that going to create some form of chaos later? Right? So it's all a matter of tuning in and really asking ourselves and being aware of our patterns, and then questioning those patterns to reform them, right? This is undoing a pattern that you've been doing your entire life is not going to be a one and done deal. It's going to be an ongoing process, and it's going to require you to consistently question your motives, question your actions, question your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. Right. And then that led me to another tangent breakthrough in the same kind of journaling session yesterday. Is I was saying to myself in my journal something to the effect of, by planning ahead and using those creative bursts to schedule things out and to, better prepare my future self, right? And I said, I know it's impossible to totally negate chaos, but it can minimize the chaos. Right? Like what I was writing was basically, I know chaos in some form is inevitable, but how can I minimize that? And then I started questioning, well, wait a minute though, is chaos really inevitable, or is that just my belief system? Because surely there is a reality where there is no chaos. Right? Now I realize obviously we need challenges, we need obstacles, we need contrast to give us that further clarity we need, right? Like in this example, the contrasting moment of an argument with my husband over me being stressed out, which ultimately only stems from my own poor planning, right, is a moment of clarity for me, because my husband is spontaneous, and that is a quality that I would like to become better at. I am getting better at it, and it is easier for me to go with the flow now, but when it comes to business stuff, it really still gets me anxious. So I thought, okay, well, this is a moment for me to expand. This is an opportunity for me to reevaluate how I do my business and how I see life and how I want to prepare myself so that I can set myself up. And I've realized it's important for me and to me to set myself up in a way that I can be spontaneous, because things are ticking away as they need to without me having to touch anything, right? I need to plan more. I need to automate more, and I need to schedule things out further in advance. I need to be planning further in advance, especially in the months. Now my son is going to kindergarten in September. So obviously the need to be spontaneous or need to accommodate spontaneity is going to dwindle a little bit, because now Monday to Friday he's in class. But that also is a great opportunity for me to practice this scheduling ahead, so that when, spring break, Christmas break, summer break hits, I can afford to be spontaneous and I don't have that anxiety, right? So I wanted to share all of this with you just because it's a real-time breakthrough that I'm having. And I think it's very valuable to a lot of us, because I know a lot of you who follow me are very type A, right? And need to be organized, but a lot of us are self-sabotaging ourselves in the sense that we need to be organized, but we're not actually organizing ourselves, right? And I know some of you are manifestors. Some of you maybe are also dealing with, well, all of us are dealing with some form of childhood trauma, and I don't like to call it trauma. I don't really see it as trauma, but anyway, that's what it's categorized as. That is creating patterns in our adulthood that we would rather not be facing, right? So I wanted to just share that realization about the creation of chaos in my own life, because I've seen it now in a couple of my clients. So I thought it was worthwhile to mention it to you as well, and to have you really looking at things and questioning, is this something that I actually want to carry forward? Or is this some result of some patterning I have that doesn't actually serve me and that I'm ready to look at and get to the root cause of, so that I can decide whether I want to continue to subscribe to that paradigm or not? Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And just as a side note, Consistency Kickstart is open for enrollment right now. It does close on Friday night, so you have a few more days to get in. It is an absolute incredible program, and it will help you work through a lot of the stuff that I just mentioned, actually, because what it does in essence is set you up with a very solid personal and spiritual development regimen, practice, whatever you want to call it, that will help you know yourself better, connect with the universe better, identify where these blocks are, so that you can move forward in a very empowering and productive way, so that you can create the life that you want with ease and flow and love and fun and all the things. Okay. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. I'd be happy to send you the link so that you can read all the information, get all the details, read some testimonials, read the FAQ section and all of the above. And regardless of whether you join me there or not, I hope that you get value from this training. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday for the next Align to the Truth Tuesday. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great rest of your day.